This is the Hear K Tell podcast. And of course, I am your host, Christina Alexander. My guest today is the CEO and founder of FreedomOrg. So, this episode, we talk about agriculture, the importance of revitalizing our communities versus gentrification. And so, we'll talk a little bit more about agriculture, why it's important, preserving the culture. So, stay tuned. Welcome to the Hear K Tell podcast. I am your host, Christina Alexander. We have an amazing episode today, and I want to get right to it. I'm telling you guys, my guest, yes, she is a career basketball coach, which includes stops at William Peace, the College of St. Elizabeth, the Community College of Philadelphia, and now serving her community as founder and CEO at FreedomOrg. As a social impact leader, she is shaping the next generation of leaders on the court, in the classroom, and throughout the community. Please welcome Marquetta Dickens. What's going on, sis?
Not much. Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
It is awesome to have you here. Just
Thank
before we got on camera, I was like, I'm going to take some notes today because I really want folks to understand that transition that you have experienced and what you're doing now. Because what you're doing now is not the I mean, again, it's new for me. I want our viewers to understand that hey, they too can be a part of it. So, as a and then I want to make sure that we're clear about this. NC State, shout out to the men's and the men's and the women's basketball teams. So, as an NC State alum and former student athlete,
you.
you have managed to accomplish many things with your transition from sport to career. Talk about how your position on the court has allowed you to lead effectively in your transition.
Yeah, I think it all really starts with mindset. You know what I mean? You've seen me in person. I'm only like 5'9" in real life. According to the roster, I'm about 6 feet. Uh, but that allowed me with my mindset and just my just toughness, and a lot of that came from where I grew up. Um, it's just really about mindset and not being denied. I'm in at 5'9" in the early 2000s, so this is long before the stretch four. I played 2, 3, and 4 at NC State at a Power Five conference, and so and that was from my freshman year, being one of the top freshmen in collegiate basketball in the ACC, to then positioning myself to be a 4 year starter at the four, because that's what my team needed me my sophomore season. And so being able to make those adjustments on the court, it's just really the same thing. It's allowed me to reposition myself, no matter where I am, because to me, sports is just it's practice for life, for real. Like all the life lessons and the things that you learn.
I absolutely agree with that last statement. It is definitely practice. And we've got plenty of 10,000 shot nights, I'm sure. And you doing the four. No, my coach has never asked me to do anything with the four position. If anything, they told me, get out of here, little one. But I can relate to you. And when you talk about how you've been able to transition effectively. Now, what skill sets do you possess now that you have sharpened over the years within the many transitions you have experienced that have been critical to your success?
My selflessness, I mean, just to be really straightforward, that really hurt my career. I'm not going to go pro and be anybody's power forward, especially in the early 2000s at 5'9". But that's where my team needed me most, right? And the same thing has happened for what I'm doing now. It was not my intent to leave collegiate coaching cold turkey, but my community needed me more. And coaching is going to be there forever. I can coach in many different ways. It does not have to be at the collegiate level. And so I had to make an adjustment midlife. And that skill set, I feel like I have sharpened, whereas before I've done it, but later I've been bitter about it, right? But now I'm doing it and I understand my why even more. I understand why why me? Because not it takes a special person to forget your own self, and do for others, especially sometimes when others don't really recognize what it is that you're doing on the sake of their behalf. It is the same thing at the collegiate level when I was a player as well. So for me, I feel like that selflessness, that skill that my coaches recognized in me to even ask me to do that, I feel like I've embraced that a lot more in my life. I became a therapist later on in life. So I always thought that Coach Al had the unique ability to see in you what you don't necessarily see in yourself just yet. So I've been able to tap into that myself as well.
Ooh, 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 come on, sis. Those are the nugget drops. So I want to share with our listeners, our viewers. So what exactly is Freedom Org? Because I think it's important before we pivot, before we continue. I think it's important for you to just kind of outline to us what is Freedom Org? How are those skills showing up today?
Yes, I'll preface it with this. If you all my friends know me, especially if you coach with me, I'm always the person who wish I could have this player and this player, put them all together. So I've been able to do that with my own career, my own business, right? And so freedom, as you know it right now, won't be freedom that you know it to be in the next 5 years. But as of right now, Freedom Organization is a 501c3. We are a community development corporation, and our mission is to invest in disinvested communities. And our key areas of focus are very broad, but I live in a rural community where, and especially in the Black community across the diaspora, where we have resources, but those resources aren't tailored for our community, right? We have to be comprehensive to start. So comprehensively, we're focusing on community and economic development. And so some key words you're hearing that is like housing, advocacy, economic development. So that's workforce development, all of the things, land conservation, all of those kinds of things, right? And then you have historic and cultural preservation. I'm from Princeville, North Carolina, the first town chartered by Blacks in America. And so just knowing the issues that we have within my personal community, and then doing the research and understanding that that's not just isolated to Princeville, North Carolina. It's a lot of Eastern North Carolina communities, but then you look nationally, it's happening on the West Coast as well. It's happening in
Absolutely.
Chicago. It's happening in Brazil. It's happening in different countries on the continent of Africa. And so it made me really see things from a different perspective. And so that history and cultural preservation piece is so key and important, because as you're rebuilding communities, you don't want to be the gentrifier of your community. You want to come in and revitalize and not gentrify. And so that's keeping our culture intact, that's educating, that's slower solutions, not the quick fixes, right? And that's the fill-in development, not just all this new shiny stuff. And then the last part is agriculture. For historic cultural standpoint, as African American, and we understand why agriculture should be very, very important to us. We understand the
Hmm.
trauma around it, but being from rural Eastern North Carolina is also a key to economic development that Black folks are not tapping into enough. And when you're talking about housing, you have to have the land first. And we want to make sure that we're being responsible stewards of the land. So all of these things encompass in, Freedom.org, and so really that community development, that pride, instilling that pride back into our communities by in connecting us back to our history and the roots of the land.
Whew, wait a minute. My pen and paper said, hold on. I got questions. I got questions. Okay. So if what I'm hearing, I want to make sure that I pinpoint a few things. We want to revitalize, not regentrify. And I
Yes.
think that's key. I listen, I've spent some time in DC. It's the
Mhm.
fastest gentrified city. And I don't care. I will debate me later or debate me somewhere else on somebody else's podcast. But I think that is important. I think it's important to really identify, like you said, to revitalize communities that we are in, communities that we have family, history, money, legacies. So I love that part of what you're doing. Now, when you talk about agriculture, listen, I live on the West Coast. There's a lot of folks out here that are into agriculture. As someone who comes from the city, my parents, we never grew up with that. But I understand at this stage of the game, it is so important. Talk a little bit more about what does that mean? Is it farming? Is it just having your own garden or is it everything?
It's
etc.
everything. And
Mhm.
so our other co-founder, Kendrick Ransom, is a young black farmer who actually started out farming. He right now is on a century farm, which means his farm has been in his family for the last 100 years. So his three-time great grandfather started out on his farm, and he actually just kind of we. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that life coincides, right? And so he actually just kind of started out because he was breeding therapeutic American bullies. And to feed those dogs are super expensive, right? And he wanted to feed them healthy, so on and so forth. So he started breeding chickens. So that's how he ended up getting into
Mhm.
farming. And then the agriculture piece and the business piece came in after he started. He had his children, his two daughters, and he wanted to leave a legacy, and he started to do his history and understand himself as a man more, right? And how to be a provider. The streets just wasn't a safe way for him to sustain generational wealth for his family. You can't pass down your street hustle per se, your street hustle business, but you can pass down that farm and that land.
Absolutely.
And so he started to understand and to come into himself more, and it actually helped me because I'm doing the housing piece in the land, and in rural Eastern North Carolina, a lot of the farmland is being bought up for development. So we have
Mhm.
to be very, very smart about these things, right? And so it's from everything from small gardens. We think about people like Booker T. Washington, Booker Watley, who talked about how you can make $100,000 on an acre of land. And so, like all of these kinds of things, we started to learn because we're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're here to highlight what our ancestors have already done, and then be able to bring the 21st century technology to that. Understanding how agriculture actually the oppression of our ancestors during our enslavement led to the the climate change crisis that we have today because of the industrialization during the cotton gin. And I'm just like, that is wild. But then you look at who is affected by climate change, it's majority black and brown and low income communities, especially here in rural Eastern North Carolina, but really in the West as well. And so a way that we help combat those things is through agriculture, and that's regenerative agriculture, which our ancestors, I mean, indigenous folks have been doing since the beginning of time. But now we're just getting back to the place where it's the cool thing to do. It's more
Right.
labor intensive, but it's actually safer for the environment. And now you're going to continue to see black farmers being left out of that conversation. And so this is a way that we advocate for, but also educate our black farmers and black community members who you don't have to be a farmer, even if you're just a gardener. We're just trying to provide those resources, opportunity, and education for our people, and conserve that land and to get that land back into our ownership and be a part of that. There's going to be billions of dollars that's about to be passed down for agriculture and land and for regenerative farming for the things that our ancestors did for free. So we need to be a part of this conversation, and we're not right now. And so we're trying to do our due diligence to bring agriculture and being back on the land cool again.
Whoo, you doing it though. You just
Yeah,
literally outlined the need, what you're solving, and how you're doing it. And to me, I'm like, this is huge. Like, this is huge. Regardless of the money, it's huge because it's something that people that look like me and you have been left out of. And
yeah,
to know, who that sport to career. This is, folks talk
yeah.
about other careers. This, sometimes farming is not sexy. Mm-mm. Some folks probably can't spell the word agriculture, but I understand what you're doing for communities. Again, black and brown is so, so huge.
And
So
it's different aspects of it though. That's the thing. Like
there's
yeah,
many,
you
you
don't
just
have
identified that.
you got distribution, you got agribusiness and tourism, you have merchants, you have grocery stores and mini markets where you could put right in your hood like everybody else is, but provide fresh, affordable produce for your community. Provide water. I go to community hood stores and we only got juice. I'm like, this is wild.
Mm.
This is nuts. So like just paying attention to those little things can still connect the dots with agriculture and preserving our history and our culture in that.
Ooh, I love that. So then I gotta pivot just slightly. If you had to say, let's cap it at 3 years.
Okay.
What is your long-term goal? 3 years.
Long-term goal is to solidify a vision and the broader vision. But the next 3 years, I would like to see all of our staff, the key staff folks that we want to have in place. We're working on the foundation to have those core pieces of the long-term vision in place in the next 3 years, and to solidify some great community partners and funders.
Ooh, you just already transitioned right into my next question. So let's talk about community and foundation. As individ, it's often said your circle matters.
Yes,
And the saying goes, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. What
yes.
would you say is the importance of community as you tackle this space?
I would say the importance of community is to understand that we are not going to all think the same, move the same, look the same, dress the same, sound the same. But we can all still be in community with one another. I don't think I like to use kind of like parables and stuff, right? Like I think of our community as a tossed salad, as a fruit salad, where you got all of these different, or a jazz band or orchestra, where you have all of these different pieces that come together that makes this magnificent masterpiece.
Mm,
If we were all the same, it would be bland. And so I have to remind myself of that. Like, sometimes I go in my community and I have a certain level of knowledge where some community members may not. I can't look down on them because they don't know, or they don't think the same, or they maybe don't even want to know. You know what I'm saying? For me, community is about what's here, and what's here, and how do you connect those two things together, regardless of what it looks like on the outside. It's about
mhm.
what is it on the inside for me. And so when I think about community, that's what it is for me, right? Like my basketball community. Some
Yep.
of us might wear light blue, some of us might wear royal blue, but we're all ACC. I might not cheer for you all the time. I might not agree with you, cheer
Got
for
it,
you. I might
coach.
talk dirty trash about you to you. But at the end of the day, we're gonna ride together. You know what I mean? We got a common goal, which is to grow the game. We got a common goal, which is to grow our community to be better, and so on and so forth. So when I think of community, I think of what makes us a community, and that's all of our unique perspectives and differences and our traumas that led us to this place in the first place. But we love where we are.
Mm, well said. Well said, sis. All right. So with success, there comes challenges. So let's
Yes.
answer the next question, two parts. One, as you navigated the collegiate coaching space, because you've been at several different institutions as a head coach, not just as an assistant. I want to make that very clear. What are your top two challenges you faced?
Oh man.
You only
The
got to give me
first
two. You giving me
Yeah,
two.
the first challenge I would say, because you got to remember where I was. So I started out as an assistant coach at Division 1, and this was before the whole student athlete advocacy thing was really a thing. Uh, this was Eric Garner, when where rarely any collegiate athletes protested, right? So it's very hard to be my full authentic self as the outspoken social justice advocate that I am in certain institutions. And I'm not a person to be a shadow of myself. I lived in the closet as a closeted gay woman, a lesbian woman for decades, and I refuse to be a closeted activist any longer. And so you have to be very, very. It's the challenge is knowing what institutions are who they say they are.
Mm,
Whereas their pillars may say, "Oh yes, we love social justice and we believe in equality and all these things," but when you look at policies and they don't reflect that, and you have a conversation about it and you become public enemy number one, that's a challenge for me, right?
okay.
And so that doesn't fit who I am. Challenge number two, what for me was, I am a person who expects excellence, and I believe that accountability for our student athletes in certain institutions who don't live up to their own expectations make it easier for our student athletes not to be held accountable.
Hmm.
And that is especially, I'm not going to shy away from this, but there is this cancel culture, right? And I feel like a lot of our PWIs are so afraid of being canceled that they do our African American and our ethnic minority student athletes a disservice when it comes to being held accountable in certain situations and instances, right? And so it's like, oh, we don't want to be this good. You say triggering words, and everybody's like, oh. we don't want to get canceled, so let us just scramble. And I'm just like, no, those young adults are not going to be able to do that in real life. You know
Okay.
what I mean? And so that's my thing is that we're not, in certain situations, we're not preparing our student athletes, especially our ethnic minority student athletes, for the real life. And that is what I pride myself on doing in basketball, and our nonprofit is what it was expected of me. And so I expect no less. From anybody else. And did I stumble sometimes, or those expectations were really high?
Right.
Yeah, I stumbled a couple of times. But coach grabbed me on by the hand, and we made it on through. And I know if she was here today, she'd be extremely proud
She
uh,
sure would.
person that I am. So
Okay, so we've got authenticity
yeah,
and accountability. And I agree with you. Definitely two important things as not only just student athletes, but coaches, administrators. Those are important things as we kind of move forward. So now I want to kind of ask you the second part of the question.
yes.
So as a Black female student athlete, that's what you are, former, navigating a space where we are not in the majority, which is what you currently do now. What has been your biggest challenge?
Um,
Is it the same thing?
yeah. I would say that's the biggest challenge, right? It was always the biggest challenge because I come from a rural southern community, and so my dialect was different. Like, just the way
Mm,
that I speak, and just people being able to understand me, right? And because of my dialect, "Oh, you must be uneducated." Like, actually, I'm actually rather intelligent. And I shouldn't have to code switch for you to believe that. So that was a challenge. And then the other challenge was, I'm an introverted person naturally. So building that community outside
come
of
on,
my
Marquetta.
team.
I would not have I listen, we met just the other day. No, ma'am, I would not have tabbed to use that, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm passionate, but I'm passionate about this stuff, right? And so when it's a different feel when you're passionate about something. I could talk all day long about things I'm passionate about, but catch me just outside randomly, like I'm in the corner somewhere, like, you know what I mean. But if I'm with my people, like I'm outspoken, I'm passionate, I'm the protector, I'm the provider, like I'm all of those things, right? But I would say, yeah, the same things, like that authenticity was a challenge, and then finding that community outside of your team was also a challenge. And just yeah, I think those are the two biggest challenges. The two biggest challenges for me.
Okay. Now, how do we package that? Meaning knowing what those challenges have been for you, knowing what set you apart, those skill sets that you had mentioned earlier. Now, the Hear K Tell podcast, where we are, focuses on the transitions from sport to career. If our viewers are listening right now, they're watching, they're like, all right, coach, what do I need to execute today to start my transition? Like, what's the how to? Give us like a 2 point outline.
Yeah, the first step is knowing you. You have to know you and your why. And you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses, and be willing to work on those things. I am a perfectionist. I used to be, people try to make me feel bad about that. I absolutely do not feel bad about being a perfectionist. I do believe that it slows me down to a certain degree, because I will get, if I see something that's a weakness, like I'm gonna be like,
Attack mode.
I want to hone in on it, right? But at the same time, it's the same thing I teach my student athletes. Don't spend so much time on your weakness that you are forgetting about your strengths, and that you're not perfecting your strengths. Because if you perfect something and you do it really, really, really well, it overshadows those weaknesses. That's what you have a staff for. That's what you have a team for, is to feel that. And then, but if you don't know you, baby, you ain't gonna be able to accept that team, because you're gonna be challenged and you're gonna be insecure, because
Tell 'em.
they're stronger where you're weaker. And I love to have stronger people in my weaknesses around me. That's because it's important. Again, it's not who you know, is who knows
Who
you.
knows you? There we go.
And if I'm not great at, I again, I'm an introvert. So when it comes to being out and networking and leveraging partnerships and relationships, I'm not the best. But I got people around me who are really great at it, and they're always constantly pushing me. Q, don't you know this person? Why you ain't called them yet? Why you ain't do this yet? Because they know I'll do it for them, but I won't do it for myself. So,
Okay.
like, I think that's important, is to, one, know yourself. That's important. And when you know your strengths and your weaknesses, heal. All right. So you won't be insecure. So you can get that team around you because you're not going to be able to be successful on your own. I don't care what nobody
Mm-mm.
tell you. You're
I
not
agree
going to
with
be
you.
able to do it. So
Agree.
that would be my takeaways.
Okay. Ooh, I love that. There was a ton of nugget drops in that one. So don't worry, folks. You just keep listening.
That's
So
the
what
therapist me talking.
that I see. I see. Okay. They say, okay, therapist Q. Now what what impact do you hope to spread to the masses?
I hope to spread to the masses to be yourself. And the more that each individual will be themselves, I think it encourages the next person to be themselves. And the more people continue to be themselves, we aren't phased by the judgments and the sheeps of the world who are programmed to go along with the status quo. I think in 2024, we have already begun to see the veils be lifted. We're seeing that the hierarchies are falling, and you don't have to play that game. You could be yourself and still be successful. You don't have to sell your soul. You don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to do any of that stuff to fulfill your soul purpose. And when you do that, life just literally flows. I make 3 times as much as I did as a coach working for myself. I never had any intentions. I didn't know. I just surrendered myself to my calling. And I say, I have ideas, I have plans, but whatever it is for me, for my highest good, and while I was brought back to this earth, just bringing those things forth to me, just stay aligned, stay prayed up, and just let it flow.
Ooh, ooh. If
Let
that
it
wasn't the
flow.
mic drop, the nugget drop, you can call it. Now, I know someone is listening saying, okay, FreedomOrg, got it. So share with us how we can connect and get involved and support your mission, not just on social media. I'm talking, they need to go to your website. I'll drop that in the link. And then is there any ways they can invest? Is there any ways like do you I know that you have the is it called the Agriculture Olympics? Is that what
For
it's
Olympics,
there you go, Farm
yeah,
Olympics. So
Olympics.
how can folks get involved literally, physically, not just likes and on TikTok and those kinds of things?
Gotcha. Well, yeah. So in terms of like donations and things like that, there'll always be a donation site on our website. So of course we'll always have on social media as well. Pull up to an event, man. Like Prince
Okay.
Juneteenth is our second annual Juneteenth that we're doing in the county of Edgecombe, town of Tarboro, which is significant. It's so significant. Oh, there we go. Was from Tarboro, and then Principal is literally right across the bridge. So for us to do this, homecoming is the second in August. That's another opportunity for you to pull up on us. And we paid students, the high
Okay.
school students, to come document these things, right? So that's another thing that you could do. April 22nd, we have a free gala, not free gala, I'm sorry, the gala is not free. We have a free community screening on April 22nd at 5 o'clock. And then at 7:30 we have our gala. This will be the triple broadcasting world premiere on PBS of our documentary Freedom Hill that talks more about Princeville, North Carolina, the flooding, and just environmental racism and how these things are pretty intentional. And what can we do about it, right? We're working on another documentary about the levee systems throughout Eastern North Carolina and agriculture and how all those things tie together. Just follow along on our website.
You got it.
Those dates are there for my athletes listening. If you want to come or even live stream to be a guest speaker, you want to donate some sneakers, you want to donate because we do skill sessions. If you want to come
Okay.
down and do a skill session,
Good.
like let's do it. If you focus on nutrition and health and you want to come
Let's
in
do
and
it.
do a
Let's partner.
sport colleges, let's partner. Let's partner. Let's get it in because Forum Olympics is a brand of ours. It's actually one of our first programs,
Okay.
and biasly is probably one of my favorite because I get to tap back into the coaching and the athletic side of things a bit. And we're looking to transition this. Like right now, we're starting with young kids, but my vision and Kendrick's vision is to have this to be like a retreat for college athletes. We talk a lot about rest and recovery now, which is something 20 years ago we did not talk a
Absolute.
lot about.
Absolute.
So we want to bring you on the farm, get you set
Okay.
up. We do yoga, meditation, rapport
Everything.
meetings. We
Mind,
do it
body, and
all.
spirit. Is that what
Mind,
I'm hearing?
body, and spirit. Mind,
Okay.
body, spirit. So that's ways that you can get involved is to partner with us on some of these programs. If you're
Okay.
interested in gardening, we're going to have a farmers collective where you can be a part of the collective, and you'll be provided with all the resources that we have. We will be providing lots of free resources for our
Okay.
collective and being introduce you right into a market. So we'll teach you how to grow it and provide a market for you to sell it back to.
Folks, that's the how-to right there. She just outlined it. Go ahead and rewind it, get right back into it. I appreciate you,
My pleasure.
Marquetta.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having me.
joining the Hear K Tell podcast. I really do appreciate you dropping nuggets. This is where it's at.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We appreciate you joining us on the Hear K Tell podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe if you're not already a part of the family, like, and definitely share. We'll see you next episode.